Hey YouTubians, it's Tony here from We Try Anything, the channel that likes try anything so you don't have to. In today's video, we're going back to the late 80s with this Casio watch that we're featuring here, with this one being the Casio TRW-10, which has a module number of 834. So as usual with the watch reviews that we undertake on We Try Anything, we're going to be looking around the actual Casio TRW-10, highlighting some of the materials used, the design of the watch, and mentioning some of the sizes along the way. We will then go through some of the functions that this watch has to offer. We will only gloss over them because there will be a tutorial video of this watch coming soon. We're going to pop it on our wrist and then say what it's like to wear. So to start things off, as you can see, it is an eBay purchase, and as you can imagine, buying anything vintage that was on sale in the what would be the late 80s isn't something that you probably get from the likes of Argos or Amazon nowadays. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, as what's customary with some of these old vintage watches, they obviously, the straps do tend to go on them. So this one here has a, it's not the standard Casio strap. There's no Casio markings on here, and it is a little bit inflexible in terms of, you can probably hear it creak. Well, it does creak anyhow. So I mean, it's not far off how the actual strap would look, but the strap for these are quite hard to get hold of, and I've only seen one seller on eBay, which is in America, who are selling this strap for 20 quid, and I probably will get it eventually. It's just for this, the idea of this video is just to show you the watch really. So I won't really concentrate that much on the strap or the materials. I mean, it is a resin strap, and you know, in terms of the actual sizing, I'm not really going to go too in depth with it, just for the pure fact that it isn't the actual strap that you would get with it. As well as the strap, what I will say, I couldn't really find a lot of information on it, just for the pure fact that it is a vintage watch. I mean, there are other watches within the TRW range, which is the TR30, which is a yacht timer, the TR21, which has a tachometer, and they command more of a premium, but I would say this is probably more the cheaper variant of the TRW range, which doesn't mean it's any less, but it is, it's not as probably desirable of what the other watches would be. But don't get me wrong, I do like this watch. So as you can see, it does have what is a plastic case to it. It's not too badly scratched or anything like that, but the decals are starting to wear off. In terms of sizes for the TRW-10, you are looking at a resin case being 38mm in diameter, which is from edge to edge there. Pusher to pusher I've measured is around 40mm, and this watch does sport what would be 3 outer pushers, which are metal in construction, and also you have a recessed pusher going on here, so it does have 4 in total. And from top to bottom, I have measured it to be about the 42mm mark. Case thickness, you are looking at around 10mm in terms of thickness, so it's not the thickest of watches, and it isn't the largest of watches. It is quite a, not a dinky watch as such, but it's nothing as big as, say, some of the other what would be more modern watches that you do get from Casio. Now, the actual weight of the watch, you are looking at around 32 grams, so it's not the heaviest of watches. And obviously, with it being a vintage watch, there's not a whole lot of sort of paraphernalia and stuff like that going on around the bezel, which is what you got here, where the decals have mentioned. It is quite a plain watch, but it's not plain in the way the dial is. It's just more in the outer casing and stuff, which is quite refreshing, really. You know, when you look at, say, some of the watches that Casio has produced over the years, more kind of towards more modern watches where there is loads of things going on. With this watch, it is quite a nice, plain, easy to look at watch, and that's where I'm going to go into with the dial. I mean, the dial, I just think I just love the dial on this watch. It is what would be quite I mean, some people do say some of these watches in the vintage range do tend to go really overcomplicated with the graphic what would be the graphic subdials and stuff like that going on here, but in this instance I really do like the layout of it. Now, as you can see, there is like a couple of graphic elements to this watch which just gives it a little bit of dynamism. You've got the bar that goes up here, which measures what would be every 5 seconds, and also you have this here which measures what would be every minute, as indicated here. But the other thing to note is towards the, I mean, obviously you got your date and stuff like that, and your day, which is quite nice in the little small window going on here, and also you've got the time and stuff like that. But what also you do notice is that you've got football, which is spelt, well, as 2 words, and you've also got the alarm and the signal. Now, this watch, it does have one feature to it, which is, I mean, I'll talk more about it when I get onto the function. It is a football inspired watch, and it is football inspired in terms of the way the countdown timer works, which I'll talk about next. But other than that, the actual graphic display looks really good on it, and I love the graphics. As I say, some people do find that watches within this era can be a bit more complicated, but not in this instance here. In terms of other features going on here, it does feature 50 meters into water resistance, and it will do a 12 and 24 hour, which is a nice little feature to these watches if you do prefer what would be military time in the USA, or what would be 24 hour in other parts of the world, as it were. As I say, the actual display, it is nice and clear, and it's very easy to read from afar. It isn't the biggest of watches. In terms of sizes, if we compare it to something which is quite a smallish watch, which is the iconic F91W, which does hark back to the 80s in terms of style and stuff like that, and has that retro vibe, it's not really that big in comparison, really. I mean, if you look at the two watches together, I mean, they're not big at all. So, you know, in terms of what I've mentioned in kind of the design of the watches going on in that time, you know, they weren't big or brash or overbearing like you would get. And other than the actual what goes on with the dial, with some people do mention there's quite a few graphic displays going and stuff that might distract their eye from looking at the time. I just think in terms of looks, it is a really nice watch. But I'll just move that F91 off to the side. Obviously, the materials I've mentioned, it has got like an acrylic what would be a dial window, so it is prone to scratches, which you can see here, and micro abrasions, and I have used some polywatch on it just to get rid of them, but it is a watch that's probably over 30 years old now. But other than that, like with all things that I like with Casio and these sort of watches, is that they do tend to last, and more so than like a watch that I have featured on the channel in the past to a few mentions of why are you doing that. The Apple Watch, where you have it for a couple of years and then you go and get a new one, or you go and upgrade it, where these watches, they just last more or less, as long as you look after them, they last forever. Now, the one thing it is missing, which is a bit of a shame really, is that it doesn't have any form of backlighting or any form of lume or anything that will allow you to view the time in the dark, which is just a shame really. But I would imagine with all of what's going on with the module, probably fitting what would be a form of lighting would be quite hard to make it, to keep it in the size that this watch is. But I just thought I'd mention it just doesn't have any form of lighting or backlighting to it. Now, the main reason that obviously this watch has a football featured is that if I go into the next mode, it's the countdown timer mode, and as you can see, what you've got is the actual graphic display here showing you what would be 3/4 of an hour. And with football, if you are into football, you all know that obviously a football game lasts for around 90 minutes, and it is split into two halves, which you've got 45 minutes each side, where after 45 minutes the football team has a break and swap sides and stuff like that, sides of the pitch that would be. And this one, it allows you to time 45 minutes by just getting into that mode and then pressing the start stop, and then you will be measuring an elapsed time. So as you can see, the graphic display does go down, and then that will go down in terms of every 5 seconds. But as you can see there, it does show you that you have got the 45-minute countdown timer, or you are within that mode, just to easily stop it and cancel it. Now, it does also feature a normal countdown timer as well, because even though it does have a 45-minute countdown timer, it won't allow for any extra time or anything like that. But if you want access to the normal countdown timer, you just press that, and the countdown timer on this will allow you up to what will be 60 minutes. So if I just add the minutes here, what you can see is that the actual graphic will go up to 60 minutes, and obviously if you want to, like, say, let's go down from 54 minutes, you can just easily do that. So if you are looking to time something or anything like that, then this watch can do it for you. And just stop that and just reset it and just go back to that. Now, the other thing this watch does also feature is a stopwatch, and the stopwatch will measure up to 60 minutes with a split time and a first and second finish time as well. So it's quite a simplistic watch, and as you can see, it does change to ST just to show you the mode that it's in. So I'll just cancel that and stop that. So it's a very easy watch to operate. The other thing you've got, it changes to AL for the alarm, is an alarm or what would be a daily alarm and an hourly signal, which are very easy to operate. And if you have got either of them activated, you will see a little graphic device next to each of these words here, which is the alarm and the signal. And it is quite a nice little simple alarm to set and easy to do, which I will show you how to do on my tutorial video coming very soon. And that's it really. I mean, it is a nice looking watch. It does show you some of the features, but as I say, I mean, the main feature of this watch is the actual 45-minute countdown. That's the reason why it's got that nice football graphic on there. But it doesn't allow for any extra time or any sort of what would be stoppage time or anything like that. But it is, you got to remember, this watch is from the late 80s, where modules were even though a little bit more complicated in their design, they were a lot more simplistic in their operation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop it on my wrist to say what it's like to wear. It is a very nice looking watch, I've got to say. I mean, to me, I really do. I'll just try and move it out the light, as it were. To me, it just looks, I don't know, it just looks so classic in its look. It's not overbearing. It does not in any way inhibit any form of hand movement. And obviously I don't want to focus on the straps, so it does wear well, but you can only understand that a watch from what would be the late 80s, very early 90s, these straps do break as such, and people who have owned it before me have taken the time to put a newer strap, which isn't too far from what would be the original. But in terms of looks, it's very easy to read from afar. It's very nice close up. I mean, obviously you do have the graphic devices moving on here, which give that watch a bit of added dynamism, I'd say. And in total, I would say, if you are looking for a watch that's a nice vintage watch to add to your collection, and you have looked at what would be the TRW-30, which is more the what would be the actual yacht one, or the TR21, which has a tachometer, or any of the other TRW range, then I would suggest you may consider this one. I mean, it's got that nice little football timer, so if you do attend a football event, you can time it, as it were. But other than that, I just think for its classic looks, not the biggest watch in the world, so it doesn't inhibit, as I say, hand movement, or if you want to cover it with a hoodie or a jumper or anything like that, or a long sleeve top, then this is a really nice watch. Plus, I just love the coloration of the actual dial. You've got the nice gold effect going on here, or what would be a very light goldy yellow, which contrasts with the actual blue and the red on the sub dial and the graphic elements here. And I just think it just adds to the overall look of this timepiece. And if, as I say, if you are in the market for like a vintage Casio, then you couldn't go wrong with this. It's just it still looks very of its day really, but it works really well in terms of finding the date, the time, and the actual functions that this watch has. So, you know, a great watch. And if you are looking for a vintage watch, then please consider the Casio TRW-10. So I hope you like the review of this Casio TRW-10, and if you did, then click on the thumbs up button. Always helps the channel. If you want to see more watches coming from the We Try Anything channel, then click on the subscription button below. And thank you for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.